Hi, welcome to the Gamesplainer. I'm Jeff the Gamesplainer and today I'm Gamesplaining October. So, to start with, I must say that last month's top 10, which was a top 6 from memory, I kept referring to October because I was in October. I do apologize about that. This is the October top 10 being filmed early November. If I happen to say November, I do apologize on the outset, but I'll endeavor to say October for you all the way through, just so you can remember exactly what we're talking about. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. My number 10 game for October is Coattail. Coattail is a relatively straightforward game where you're building up a lizard or dragon, or I can't remember, a snake I think it is. But you're building that up out of plastic. There's some funky little fat plastic pieces that fit together, but you're trying to build in different color combinations depending on what cards you have in your hand. I've really enjoyed playing the game. It's quite an easy game to get to the table. I think it's actually built as more of a kid's game, and that's the feeling I get from just the game finishes once you've built, or once someone has built their third thing. But there's a lot of points that can go on. So for a gamer, it's actually quite a nice experience because you actually end up trying to get the right cards to enable this single thing that you're building to get quite high points, as opposed to just trying to get one card built. So that was Coattail. My number 9 for October is 5211 Azul. 5211 is a straightforward game. If you have played the other Azul games, it kind of has similar ideas, but actually feels relatively different because it's a card game version of the basic Azul structure. And so you're trying to put down cards to, in front of you, you put down 2 cards to start with, then the next round you put down 1 card, then 1 more card, thus the name 211, or 5211 because you've got 5 cards in your hand. You then look at the entire table to see which colored card is the highest, and that one will go into a score pile. And each card has a scoring number on it. That doesn't come into account until you actually count up the score pile. So anything that has the higher numbers, you want to make sure that they're being used for things that are actually going to score rather than just being lost. My number 8 game for October is Fort. Now, Fort is a little bit of a surprise game. I wasn't expecting much out of it, but I kind of enjoyed it. I enjoyed the way of playing it. The only problem with the game is that it feels really slow. That might just be because I've been having 2-player games of it rather than a 4-player game, but it feels a little bit slow to get to things. And what I found, and if you watch my Gamesplaination, by the way, all the games that I've so far talked about have been games that have had Gamesplainations in the last month or so. But if you watch the Gamesplaination, you'll see me, I'm talking about one of the games I played was the other player barely got any points while I managed to get a whole bunch of points. And I fear that with this game, it's really easy to forget about getting points and forget about how you get points and just kind of move through the actions. So it's just something to watch out for if you're ever playing Fort. Let's move forward. My number 7 game for October is Mariposas. Mariposas is the next game out from the creator of Wingspan. It's based on butterflies. I fear that the creators were trying to pick up on the popularity of Wingspan, but by doing something else that's kind of nature-y, but they haven't quite hit the mark. If you watch the Gamesplaination, you'll get an idea of what I'm talking about with that. But there's just a little bit of funkiness to it in terms of the actual placements and moving around, and I don't know, I wonder if, thinking that it's from the same designer as Wingspan, you're pushed in a direction with your expectations, and then when it doesn't add up to those expectations, you see it as less of a game than it is. It's quite a good game. It plays nicely, it plays really straightforward, and it's really understandable, but it's not a Wingspan. So if you can separate those two, you may find that you actually really like Mariposas. Let's move forward. My number 6 game for October is Crown of Amara. Crown of Amara is a much heavier game than I would have expected with the relatively straightforwardness of the rules. But it's really tight and really kind of, I want to do that, but I can't do that. You have 2 boards and you have to choose between moving around one of them or the other one. You're just moving in circles. but there are 3 turns in each round. On the first of those 3 turns, you can move 1 spot. On the second, you move 2. On the third, you move 3. And that, in and of itself, doesn't sound that hard until you actually play it and you go, but I want to do that, but I can't get to that until the third thing I do in this. So if I leave him where he is, I'm going to have to do 2 things over on this side to enable me to be able to do my 3 movement over there. Or I could do a 1 movement here and a 2 movement there to be able to do it. But in order to get to that one and have the right stuff for that, I'm going to have to do the thing over here. And there's that. It's actually a really thinky game where it doesn't necessarily look like it should be a thinky game. Bear that in mind. My number 5 game for October is Pendulum. You may be surprised to see Pendulum so low on my list because I really like the game. I fear that it's so low on my list simply because I've only had the 1 2-player game of it. I think if I had a larger player count game, so it plays up to 5, if I had that 5-player game, I think that it would be a much higher on my list because it is a really good game. I just found that on the 2-player game, and this is actually kind of built into it a little bit because it's a continuous, like you're playing against sand timers type game. The players did their things and then had to wait for the sand timers to run out. I don't dislike that. It forces you to stop and think rather than just do. And that's actually a really good thing. But I fear just with the 2 players, we hit that point a little bit too much and kind of found ourselves just sitting waiting for the game to catch up to us. With more players, I think there'll be a little bit more thinkiness happening. And it's a little bit of I expect it to be a little bit of a tighter game. My number 4 game for October is Blood Bowl. Now, Blood Bowl is the only game that I have rated as a number 10 on Board Game Geek in terms of how good it is. That is from previous past, before I was this guy, I was a Games Workshop guy, and Blood Bowl just has a nostalgia to it that I still love. But I've found that in playing, I'm playing relatively the same game, relying on the dice to manipulate if that's going to happen or not going to happen. And so that's why it's a little bit lower down the list than the BGG rating would have you expect. My number 8 game for October is Vikings. Now, Vikings took me by surprise. It's a game that's been sitting on my shelf for a really long time. I don't think I even did a Gamesplainer of it. It just sat on the shelf. It got played, which is why it's on the shelf. I have a little space over there of the ones that haven't made the shelf yet simply because they haven't been played, so I'm not willing for someone to walk over and go, oh, let's play that. Oh, I don't know how to play it. So, with Vikings, it took a little bit for us to get it back into the groove. Simply because there's a little bit of thinking that needs to go on with the game in order to actually understand what's happening. But in essence, you're taking tiles and placing them out on your tableau, and by the time all those tiles are taken from up there, you need to get some various things in so that you can actually score other things, but you've got to have money. And I found money really, really tight on this game. And that's something to really think about, is how tight is the money? How much am I willing to spend to stop the other player from being able to get this thing that would be free? Because the tiles are for a certain coloured men and they go in a certain order, but you can't take the one that's free until everything else from that tile type has been taken. And so spending the 4 money to take the last one of that tile means that the next player is going to be able to get that one for free. Weighing that up is really where this game is at, and it's quite a good game. I really enjoyed it. I may even do a Gamesplainer of it. I'm not 100% sure that it's still available. If it is still available, I might even do a Gamesplainer of it to just kind of get it back onto the line. But let's keep moving. My number 9 game for October is The Crew, The Quest for Planet 9. This is a game that took me by surprise. I didn't expect to like it as much as I do, but I think it's a really solid game. I don't own it, but my brother had a copy and said, let's play it at a game day early on in the month. By the time I got up to having another game day with the same people, other members of that same group had also gone and bought it because they liked it so much. It's a really good game. In essence, you have a hand of cards and you're playing cards out in a kind of 500 style, so following the suit, etc., etc. But there's a rule, everyone's working together, by the way. There's a rule that you're trying to follow, so this card, when it comes out, it has to win, is the essence of the game. So, but not being able to talk to each other is really hard, and kind of just getting your head to, I need to play this one in this spot. And as you go further into the game, the rules get harder and harder and harder, and so therefore it gets harder and harder to win. I think it's a really, really solid game. Such a good piece of production, and I'm just such a fan of Crew. And that brings me to my number one game for October, Santa Monica. Now, I wasn't expecting Santa Monica to be my number one game for this month. It's getting released, the Gamesplainer is getting released this weekend on the back of this very video. I really liked it. I think that the understanding of what you're doing is a lot harder than the rules would have you expect. And so getting through the rules is actually relatively simple, but the thinkiness on which cards to take in is really immense, really high levels of, do I want to do that? Do I want to do that? There's a lot of stuff going on with this game that I wasn't expecting when I placed it on the table. So there it is. Santa Monica is my number one game for this month. Let's see how November takes me over to next month to see what my top 10 will be there. Hopefully I will once again have 10 to choose from. I think this month I had 12 or 13 to choose from, and so that made it a little bit easier to kind of pull into the right spot. If you have any comments or suggestions, please write them below. If you have any games that you would like to be gamesplained, please shoot me an email to thegamesplainer@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter @thegamesplainer to keep up to date with the games I'm playing. Subscribe to my videos to keep up to date with the games that I'm gamesplaining. And until next time, enjoy gaming.